This is Countryside News Channel, your official online and cable news channel, giving you the latest information from the province of Lanao del Norte. Countryside News Channel.
Good day. Today's congressional update focused on the inquiry of Congressman KHALID DIMAPORO about the DPWH budget 2020, including the update of Panguil Bay Bridge and DPWH projects in the identified BARMM areas.
The next in our list is from the majority. Representative, the chair recognizes Representative KHALID DIMAPORO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first, I'd like to confirm with our good secretary, Mr. Chair, has there been an increase in the DPWH budget from 2019 to 2020?
Yes, from the GAA of 2019 and from the GAA, the proposed NEP for 2020. In 2019, the General Appropriation Act, the GAA was 454.79. In 2020, the proposed NEP is 534.29.
Am I correct in saying, Mr. Chair, that there's a 17% increase in 2020 from 2019, Mr. Chair?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Chair, a good point was brought up by our colleague, Congressman Lagman. And the answer of the good secretary was the 2020 budget is hybrid, obligation and cash-based. What number are we looking at? Because last Congress, we were confused with Secretary Jokno. You have the cash-based versus the obligation-based, apples to apples, orange to apples, orange to orange. What are we looking at for 2020? That increase, is that cash-based versus cash-based, 2019 and 2020?
This proposed 2020 NEP is the obligation is for 1 year, valid for 1 year, and the disbursement is valid of the last December 31, 2021. So basically 2 years.
Mr. Chair,
the difference is before it was the proposal was 1 year, both obligation and disbursement. So what is provided for in the 2020 NEP is a year for the obligation and 2 years for another year for the 2 years for the disbursement. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move forward and just place on the record that the 2nd District of Lanao del Norte actually had a reduction. It's very nice to know that there's a 17% increase in the DPWH budget, but in the 2nd District of Lanao del Norte, there's a 23% reduction in our DPWH budget. So that begs me to question, are there any big winners or losers as far as the regions are concerned? May the good secretary please state on the record, what is the budget difference from 2019 to 2020 per region, Mr. Chair, so we can know who has gained and who has lost budget with the DPWH?
We don't have that data at this moment, but we can get it in if you give us a few moments later, a little later. We'll get it now. Yeah.
I'll
Even
appreciate
for-
that,
by
Mr. Chair.
region.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on to my next series of questions. It's almost 1 year, our anniversary, since we last saw Secretary Mark Villar in Lanao del Norte. And the reason why he was in Lanao del Norte is to groundbreak the Panguil Bay Bridge. We're very excited, pero after how many months, wala pang nangyayari. And it's nice to note that in the presentation, the Panguil Bay Bridge was singled out as ready for implementation by the good secretary. I'd like to know the status of Panguil Bay Bridge, Mr. Chair.
Yes, at this point, as you know, the feasibility studies, the detailed engineering, design is actually we're preparing negotiations with the contractors now, as there were some technical issues. Maybe I can refer this to Undersecretary Sadain of the UPMO, Unified Project Management Office.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Kong. There's still an ongoing procurement for this, Mr. Chair. First, the procurement is a QCBS, it's quality cost-based selection scheme where the point system is actually being applied for a design and build concept. Now, under the ODA loan, particularly for the Korean Exim Bank, it goes through with the process where there are actually needing concurrence in every step of the procurement. Nevertheless, Mr. Chair, the Korean Exim Bank unlike the World Bank, ADB, JICA, has a more simplified and more defined process of procurement. So in this case, Mr. Chair, there are some issues that we need to clarify, where there are some queries that we need to repair it back to the Korean Exim Bank, but nevertheless, it needs some guidance also from the legality on the government side, no. So we have one request, Mr. Chair, for DOJ opinion on the issues on the awarding to proceed with the next step with the procurement. The BAC has actually difficulties in identifying the most appropriate contractors, no, following the strict guidelines, just like the JICA, World Bank, and ADB. But in this case, Mr. Chair, we just actually ask for some guidance from the DOJ for us to proceed with the procurement. And we are expecting, Mr. Chair, by September, we can have the award for this contract. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chair. I'd like to let the good secretary know that the problem sa amin sa Lanao del Norte, people are whispering na the reason why Panguil Bay Bridge hasn't been developed or built yet is because linulutaw pa nila dyan sa central office, DPWH. But it's good to know that we're on schedule. And I hope that we will see the structures erected before the end of our president's term. Sana lang matapos rin.
Yes, rest assured that I personally have a personal stake in this project. Of course, given the complexity, we just want to make sure that we've crossed all the T's and dot the I's, because it will be the longest bridge that's ever been built in the Philippines. We want to make sure that everything that we've done is above board and everything that we've done is technically sound. But rest assured, Congressman, I am personally at it's a pet project of this administration, and we'll make sure that it is finished at the soonest possible time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope the good secretary will also make it a tourism project na it will be even more beautiful than the Mactan Bridge in Cebu. I'd like to move on to my next series of questions, Mr. Chair. Farm-to-market roads. What's the total budget allocated for farm-to-market roads under the convergence program of DPWH for the years 2018, 2019, and 2020?
We will get that. Of course, the farm-to-market is under the DA, which is then downloaded to us. Although it's not directly under our budget. We can derive what was downloaded to us in previous years from the Department of Agriculture for implementation.
Chair, I'd like to ask my follow-up question to that, and that's, is there a counterpart requirement by the DPWH from the local government units for farm-to-market roads? What's the policy of DPWH, Mr. Chair?
No, there's no counterpart needed for farm-to-market, but there is a vetting that is needed. The process for this, for farm-to-market roads, should anyone wish to request, is you have to go first to the Department of Agriculture, and then they will download it to the Department of DPWH for implementation. So in terms of identification, it is with the Department of Agriculture. So that's the first you should go to, so that they will identify it. They have a budget for this specifically dedicated to FMR. This was for 2019. The farm-to-market projects totaled 10.2 billion.
And I'd like to let the good secretary know that around this time of the year, maybe about 6 months after the approval of the GAA for DPWH's budget, I always get a love letter from the regional director of the Department of Agriculture requesting for a local government counterpart of 10%. Now, it's a good answer, and I appreciate the answer of Secretary Mark Villar. I'd like to move on to my next question, Mr. Chair. And that's in regards to the implementation of road projects inside the ARMM, or now the BARMM. Last budget briefings or budget hearing in the previous Congress, I asked this of DPWH. 4 billion was implemented or budgeted by DPWH to be implemented in ARMM. And it was downloaded in Northern Mindanao, Soc-Sargen, and Zamboanga Peninsula to be implemented in Lanao del Sur, Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Maguindanao. When we discussed this with the DBM Secretary, he said that will no longer be the practice. But the most important here for me is the road inventory, the national road inventory of the DPWH inside the now new Bangsamoro Autonomous Region for Muslim Mindanao. Do we now have that road inventory? Because in the previous Congress, walang road inventory, yet we're budgeting for them. Do we have a national road inventory inside the BARMM, Mr. Chair?
As you know, to answer your question, simply no, not yet, because as you know, there's a DPWH in the ARM, and at this point, we personally do not have. This department does not yet have a national road inventory. There.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the good secretary for his transparency. I have now a love letter to Secretary Yusek Cabral that I do every year, and that's appealing to DPWH good public accountability. I'd like to know exactly if there will be any budget for the BARMM allocated by the DPWH Central Office to be implemented through Regions 9, 10, and 12. So I can keep the records in my office, Mr. Chair.
Please wind up, Honorable Sir.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, you're asking if there's a budget for the ARMN in this. Yes, actually, there's a small. Yeah, depending on the, I don't have an exact amount per district. We can furnish you with the exact amount per district, but yes, there is a budget allocated for the ARMN districts, and which is to be sourced from the block grant that was given.
Your time is up, sir. Honorable Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretary Villar, for all the candid answers.
There you have it, the latest update from the office of 1st District Congressman KHALID DIMAPORO. This has been Maria Teresa Herrera. Thank you for watching.